previous people. It may be just the fact he stepped into the office and feels he's got to play the game for a while. He's been adamant. He's been a no vote and one of the hardest people about no more money to Ukraine. Where do you think we stand?
Well, Steve, I think we've got to, trust but verify in all of these situations. All right, these people get into D.C., they have all the happy talk until they get into the seats of power. But once you get into that hot seat, once you are the person that the spotlight is on, then it is your decisions that you will be judged by. It is your actions you will be judged by. So I hear the happy talk. I heard all the Hannity interview, and I've got lots of comments that I could say about it. But I'm going to say this simply. What are you going to push? What are you going to stop? What are you going to vote on? What are you going to investigate? What are you going to put forward? Explain to us what the plan is. And I would say this to Biden. I would say it to the House Republicans. I would say it to leadership, all of it. What is the plan? What is the desired end state currently? Because the counteroffensive that Ukraine spent how much money on, how many billions of our dollars that we could have been using, by the way, pull back the 60 million and call up your rep and say, I don't want to ban guns. I want to take the 60 billion from Ukraine, and use it to build a giant, massive, nationwide complex of mental institutions that we can put in these nut jobs that say they're listening to the shadow people. Why don't we put 60 billion towards that so we don't have people getting shot up, bowling alleys anymore? So that's number one. Number two, when it comes down to it, you can say whatever you want on Hannity, you can say whatever you want on Twitter, all right? I can say stuff, JD Vance can say, we can all say things, right? But when you're put in a position of leadership, you will be judged on your record and you will be judged on your actions. That is where I will hold accountability. So if you tell me that these people of Ukraine, these men, these boys that are being sent into the trenches right now up against the Russian army that is now pummeling them in the city of Avdiivka, the city where we were told that Ukraine was going to have this big punch through and they're going to be in Crimea by Christmas and all this stuff, and it's gone. And instead, just look at it by the numbers, Steve. This was supposed to be the year of the big Ukrainian counterpunch. Ukraine actually lost more territory to Russia this year on net. Russia took territory when they weren't even running a counteroffensive this entire year, while Ukraine was supposed to be running theirs. That's how bad this counteroffensive is going. You look at the demographics, you look at the numbers. Explain to me how Ukraine even survives as a country after this. Okay, maybe you can get a couple of territories back, fine, I get it. But when you're sending thousands of people to their deaths in the charnel house, in the slaughterhouse right now in eastern Ukraine where they speak Russian anyway, my question is, who does this actually benefit? Because when I see those new graveyards being built up in Kiev, when I see the blue and gold flags going up all over so far, you can't even see the end of it. It's as far as the eye can see all the way to the horizon line. My question is, what happens to those families? What happens to those children that don't grow up without a father, those women that don't have a husband who comes home? What happens to the country of Ukraine after that? And so when you're telling me, we just got to send them more money, we just got to send them more weapons. Meanwhile, they're running the whole Steve, it's so bad they killed Putin again. It's so bad that they're running this ridiculous narrative that Putin's dead again. I saw the one this morning. They're saying they cryogenically froze Putin's body, and the one that you're actually seeing in all these meetings, that's the fake Putin is rolled out again. That's how bad they're in the mumble tank. And this is Daily Mail and the Murdoch Post that are pushing this crap again, because every time they kill Putin, I think this is Putin's 5th death throughout the entire war. So every time they kill Putin, that's how you know Ukraine is losing. And people say, why is it that I can see videos of Israel and see these videos, and truly horrific videos of Gaza as well, right? We have to say they're horrific videos on both sides. It's just true. And there's a lot of civilians that are being killed. There's Christians that are being killed in Gaza. I know people don't like to hear that. It's kind of an inconvenient fact, but guess what? It's true. There are Christians that are being killed because they're in Gaza and they are being killed. They're Palestinian, but they're also Orthodox Christians, some of the oldest Orthodox Christian communities in the world. Steve, we're getting videos out of there because you've got people on the ground that are posting it. We don't get videos out of Ukraine because it shows who was winning. It shows who's actually winning in Ukraine. This isn't Vietnam. This isn't World War II. This is prime time. Okay, this is prime time. It's not the Gulf War with CNN. This is a new day, and everyone is dying, and it is in the palm of your hand to behold that little piece of glass that you have right in your pocket.
Jack, how do people get to Human Events Daily? How do they get to your Twitter? Because you've been on top of this, and it's only going to get more intense. We must stop the Ukraine funding. First off, Johnson's with us to bifurcate Israel, Ukraine, and particularly Ukraine from the border, from the phony money they want to put on the border. But just look at Ukraine. If they stick by the Hastert rule, this will never be able to come to the floor because the majority of the conference is against it. Jack, where do they go to follow you?
Look, Steve, you can go ahead and post it. And one thing that I'm going to start doing as well on Twitter, we're going to do this on Getter, is because we've seen these atrocities. We've seen them in Gaza. Gaza is becoming the new Dresden of the Levant. It's the Dresden of the Levant with these bombings. We're going to post the videos. We're going to post it the same way we posted the kibbutz murders before anybody else did. And you know what else I'm going to start posting, Steve? Because people want to, this is the new language of the land. We're going to go back to posting the cartel videos. You want to see real atrocities? Let's talk about what the cartels are doing on both sides of the American border, of the people that are being killed, the people that are being executed, the people that are getting their heads chopped. You want to talk about beheadings? Let's talk about the beheadings that are going on right now on the southern border in our own backyard that nobody wants to talk about. You want to do a little 5G warfare? Well, Poso can do a little 5G warfare. I'll see you at 2 p.m.
Wow. Jack Pos will be live on Real America's Voice Human Events Daily, following the Charlie Kirk Show, which follows us 2 p.m. Jack, look forward to seeing it. Thanks, brother.
God bless you.
These are the people we need in office.
Poso on fire this morning. Must have had something to do with that biblical worldview of Johnson. Quite inspirational. EJ and Tony, I know you've got a biblical worldview too from the Catholic perspective, but your article on Fox News gets us into the nitty-gritty of reality. This is a spiritual war, but it's fought in the material plane. I should say much of it is fought in the spiritual plane. Tell me about the bombshell, the Treasury bombshell. We're trying to make sure in this fight that folks understand whether it is the expanding Third World War, the invasion on our southern border, which is the most massive invasion in the history of our nation. Underlying this is the financial collapse of our country. You've done a magnificent piece on a bombshell at a Treasury, and the best is yet to come, or the worst is yet to come. Walk me through it.
Certainly, Steve. Well, thank you for having me. A lot of what's in that piece are things that we've already talked about on your show, namely the fact that Treasury is borrowing at an absolutely breakneck pace and that this is not by any means sustainable. And although the latest report shows that they borrowed $1.7 trillion in the last year, there are a lot of accounting gimmicks going on, and in reality, it's a $2 trillion deficit. And as you said, the worst is yet to come because we are continuing to borrow more and more each day. You know, we highlighted at the beginning of this month that the Treasury was very likely going to borrow over $500 billion in October 2023. Guess what? They passed that a couple of days ago, which is more than double what they borrowed in the entire month of October 2022 last year. So things are getting worse, not better, unfortunately, and it's all because the Biden administration is hell-bent on spending us into oblivion, and we are just spending far more than we take in as a government. And that's what's leading to all this borrowing and this deficit debt spiral that we're getting into.
It's also, in addition, you called this when we talked about it, and you see about the phoniness of 4.9% growth. You don't see Wall Street talking a lot about that this morning because it's phony. It's all government spending. The reason is the reality is the tax revenues. They had almost a $600 billion miss on the tax revenues. Folks, Kim.com, who's a huge influencer on Twitter, and a guy Elon Musk follows a lot, the guy that owns Twitter, much to his regret, came out yesterday about the $600 billion in October, said the last 30 days, $600 billion of new borrowing, right, blown through every projection, and he said it's the end. He wouldn't, if the next president, doesn't matter who the next president is, even saying if Trump came back, and I've said, hey, even with Trump's business savvy and all the tools in the toolbox, it's going to be brutal. Because, EJ, you nailed it. It's the refinancing it's the fresh financing of the new deficit, and the refinancing of the old debt is now starting to spiral out of control, sir. So what is to be done?
Oh, Steve, there's absolutely only one thing you can do, and that's to cut the spending. The reason for that is because the interest rates are largely out of the Treasury's control. Now that's in the hands of the Fed, but the Fed has only two choices. Either A, they can continue with the monetary tightening, which will kill the inflation, but it's going to drive interest rates through the roof for the Treasury because the Treasury is borrowing so much. The alternative is to just give money to the Treasury for them to spend, but that's going to send inflation right back up. So that's where the Fed's at. So the Treasury has to cut their spending and borrowing. It's the only way out of this mess. You know, Janet Yellen just the other day was talking about how she and Biden are working on a plan, allegedly, that is going to bring the cost of servicing the debt down to just 2% or less of GDP. There's only two ways to reduce the cost of servicing the debt. You either have to reduce the debt or reduce interest rates. Well, we just explained how reducing interest rates is really not an option right now. So are you telling me that Janet Yellen and Joe Biden are planning on reducing the debt? I don't think so.
And Janet Yellen just said at the same time, America has enough capacity to fund Ukraine and to fund Israel and fund all the things they want to do. No mention of the southern border. We have the villa. This is why the fight's in front of us right now, the Ukraine supplemental. Remember, it's a supplemental, $100 billion, $106 billion supplemental over and above the $1 trillion of defense that's in appropriations. We've got the CR that's right upon us. They're going to fight to make sure we don't have an omnibus. All of these fights, and you're going to be in it. We don't need to call right now. We're going to wait and hit with the tsunami next week. But this is where this fight's going to be. The fight's going to be right now. Enough happy talk, invasion of the southern border, a capital market situation that's spinning out of control, inability to sell the bonds unless you jack the interest rates up. And this is with the world on fire. Normally it'd be the going to the safe haven, right, would be the United States. They're still having a tough time selling the bonds. EJ, how do people, you've got great charts, great analysis up all the time. And one of the reasons I want to put the Fox thing up, you were on this weeks and weeks and weeks on the war room, and that's what we appreciate. I appreciate you so much. Where do people go to stay up on everything that you're doing?
Oh, best place to find me is going to be on Twitter. The handle is @RealEJAntoni.
EJ, fantastic. Look forward to having you back on here, breaking this stuff down.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks, brother. We have
You're blind.
Speaker Johnson lays it out in the interview last night. He has a biblical worldview, and they're pressuring him about this and about that. He says, hey, read the Bible. You'll understand my worldview. That is a sea change in Washington, D.C. This is what this fight over many years, but this is what this fight particularly over the last 9 months has been about. And they are absolutely freaking out. And they're going to come after Johnson like you've never seen before. They've already come after President Trump. Unprecedented what they're doing to President Trump. You watch what they do to Mike Johnson and what they do to try to browbeat and keep Mike Johnson in line with their beliefs. That is why this audience, this show, the Charlie Kirk, the Jack Posobiec, all of it, more important than ever. Because now the fight really starts. Victory begets victory. But now comes the fight. Short commercial break. Back in the war room in a moment.